Night footy on Fox, thanks to UltraTune.
Welcome back. Well, what a game we've had to open up season 2016. There was the Tigers getting up by 9 points. For those who love a stat, apparently the same score as the 1932 grand final between these two teams. I had to get that away because the Blacks have been working on that all night. I couldn't let that one go through. 14-8-92 to 12-11-83. Something for everybody there. The Tigers got out of jail. They were absolutely worried sick, you would have thought. You saw the face of Damien Hardwick at various stages. And also great news for Carlton because in the end, you know, they show that they're not going to be walkovers during the season. They've got a good system, they've got a good shape, and they've got some good players out there. 23 scoring shots to Carlton, 22 to Richmond, but the Tigers kicked 14-8 to 12-11. And in the end, as it always seems to be these days, there are a couple of missed opportunities, some sliding door moments that Carlton will rue, and we'll go through them all in a few moments' time. But Casbolt's miss early in that last quarter was the one that shot them in the foot, except he would have missed his foot.
Yeah. Look, I thought there were some really encouraging signs for the Blues there. They went inside forward 57 times. Now, last year they weren't doing anywhere near that. The Tigers went in and they won with 46 entries inside 50, which means the ball movement was a lot better for the Blues. They were able to swap direction, going completely to the outside of the ground, inside their own defensive 50, which took it down a blank side. So, got easy access there. I think there's some real good signs there for the Blues.
Yeah, really good signs. Good signs for the Tigers as well. The way they hung in there, obviously some of the better players in Richmond's side didn't play well on the night, but it was the lesser lights in Lambert and Lloyd, especially in that last quarter, that stood up when it counted. And that's the question mark at Richmond. Have they got the depth? And tonight a couple of those depth players came through with the goods.
We talked about Dusty Martin getting all these kicks in the back half. He got a hell of a lot in the front half and the second half of that game.
The young lad Miles,
and Miles is good.
Was probably inside the difference in the second half.
Well, they dominated the clearances in that last quarter and a half, Richmond, when really Carlton had been the better side in that part of the game before then, Derm.
It's just composure. Lloyd was terrific. Those two goals he got in the end were fantastic.
Snaps.
Menadue was really good, got a couple of goals as well. And the Blues, they won a lot of things, but they just didn't win on the scoreboard.
And Lambert was very good in that last quarter as well. But in the end, they just had a little bit more firepower. As you said, Menadue, Lloyd stood up, kicked a couple of good goals, got the chances. But as is always the case, Tim, you take your chances, don't you? And the Blues had a couple of sliding doors opportunities. We've said that a few times early on. Kerridge in the second quarter, in the last quarter there, Everett running in, dropped the chest mark that he'd like to have again just to get the ball forward. And of course, big Casbolt from 20 metres out, you spray it, it goes down the other end, and Lloyd kicks two rippers. Rewald kicks one from 25 with an absolute dead-eye kick. And that's the match.
I thought the fatigue element hurt the Carlton team's skills more than the Richmond side. They weren't able to execute when fatigue really set in after half-time like the Tigers could.
It was interesting to see the interchange cap. Richmond certainly had a lot more numbers up their sleeve coming to that last quarter. They were about, I suppose, they had 10 more rotations than Carlton did, especially in the last quarter. So they were able to run out the game better. I'm not sure how big of an effect that has, but certainly Mark Murphy ran out of puff. Now, we know he's had a very limited pre-season. He was fantastic all night, Sellers, but just couldn't find the footy in that last quarter along with a few other guys. Patrick Cripps dropped away as well.
Yeah, he dropped. Actually, Murphy looked hurt in the end. He couldn't use his right arm, and he was in a lot of trouble at the end. So, good effort by them. I thought they were terrific in the way their endeavour. They've changed. They've changed a lot if you really look at what they've done. Enormous change.
The boy Rioli, Sellers, on screen now, who didn't have a massive night, but I tell you what, he likes to run them down and tackle from behind, which is invaluable in this caper.
Jeez, doesn't he love a Rioli, Derm?
A bit of a family trait, that one, Derm.
Hey, Derm, is that one of the...
His cousin Cyril's not bad at doing it, and his uncle Morris was one of the best tacklers ever.
Yeah.
All right, let's go down to Tigerland and listen to the song. So the Tigers win by 9 points, 14-8-92 to 12-11-83. Let's go to the lab now for Ultra Tune. Jared Healy and David King for their first thoughts on the Tigers' 9-point victory.
I reckon we can be guilty sometimes doing sliding doors commentary. I mean, really, Carlton were all over them tonight. A young kid called Patrick Cripps assaulted the Richmond midfield in that first half. And I feel like Carlton lost that game rather than Richmond won it. And I've been on Richmond for a long time. I thought their system was shown to be flawed tonight, and there's a lot of cracks that can't be wallpapered over by the victory.
Speaking of system, the system that's been implemented in just 12 weeks at Carlton is going to go a long way. You could see that Carlton knew exactly what they needed to do under pressure. Their skill level failed them a couple of times. They had some opportunities. Ed's spoken about that. But overall, Carlton will walk away disappointed, but absolutely looking forward to the next 21 matches.
Got some ripping highlights to show exactly what Brendan Bolton has brought to Carlton almost immediately, Ed, that we'll touch on later on. It is 4 points for Richmond, and that's all Damien Hardwick wanted. But you can see the obvious system flaws at Richmond at the moment.
Yep, that's what you'll read in the Herald Sun tomorrow. 4 points to the Tigers. They're on top of the ladder after one game. Let's have a look at this one, though. Cripps got out the back. He was clearly the best on ground until about three-quarters of the way through that third quarter. Great goal with Murphy getting over the top end, as you can see from Damien Hardwick. Not happy at all with what was going on. Riewoldt took a mark. Every time they needed somebody tonight, Jack Riewoldt took the mark and then slotted through the goal. Played really well. Phillips ended up with 3, and this was a good bit of play here for him. He got up and took the mark. Phillips kicked this goal. Wright was who kicked 3. We'll get to him in a moment. And Walker with this one-hander. And this was a beauty. And this put Carlton in front at the 19-minute mark by 4 points of the third term.
Looking to increase that 4-point lead, Ed. Matty Wright gets on the end of one here, and just the little sneaky dribble around the corner puts the Blues up by 10 points. Enter Levi Casbolt running back. Did he have enough of it? Did he control it all the way? It wasn't paid, and it was right at the top of the goal square. But not to be outdone again. Matty Wright goes back and bangs another one through. It's the Blues at half-time by 9 points.
And here we go again, deja vu. Major sense of frustration for Blues supporters. Levi Casbolt's goal king, but it wasn't much better the other end. Kane Lambert, that was an absolute shocker from a long way out. This was the shocker, Sean Hampson. And it just took one of the great players in the competition and one of the most reliable set shots in the game, Jack Riewoldt, the steadier, and that was a crucial part of the game.
Then enter Lloyd. Really the goal of the year, I think, so far.
Yes.
The ripper goal on his left and puts him 3 points in front at that stage. It goes again. Lloyd picks it up again, another one. They thought it was touched, but it wasn't, and that's second goal straight in a row. And then Miles puts the sealer right on the game at this time, and they just head off to the grandstand. But then Everett gets one back, and it was a bit of a battle right to the end. The Tigers win by 9.
Yeah, went right down to the wire. But a 9-point victory to the Tigers. Those 4 goals in a row from the 7-minute mark to the 21-minute mark, breaking the game wide open from being 3 points down to being 16 points up, and that was it. 14-8-92 to 12-11-83. So we said one more scoring shot to the Blues, but the accurate Tigers were able to get the job done. All right, Johnny Ralph's been in the newsroom. It's been a busy night. A little bit more to talk about, Ralphie.
No doubt. Well, the AFL's 18 clubs and the Players Association are set to go to war over the next 6 months over a potential review of the AFL's illicit drugs code. Now, we know that the AFL's Players Association is intractable on that review. Now, as recently as Wednesday, Paul Marsh, the Chief Executive, said, "We are committed to giving this policy time to work. We signed off on this policy only a year ago." Now, of course, this comes after revelations that a raft of clubs, including Collingwood, have double-figure hair tests over the summer. Now, Collingwood has been revealed to have 11.
No, it's not. No, they haven't. It's been reported that Collingwood has 11. I'm going to jump right in here because there'll be a joint press conference tomorrow, or at least a press release from both the AFL and Collingwood refuting the numbers that have been reported tonight. I've just got that message through. I've been here, obviously. We don't know. I don't know the numbers, but I can tell you exclusively now, Ralphie, that tomorrow the AFL and the Collingwood Football Club will say those numbers are inaccurate.
Fantastic, Ed. That's great news for Collingwood. I think what we do know is that there are a lot of positive hair tests across the summer, and that might be about greater detection. It might be about volcanic activity there. But what we do know is that the AFL Players Association will not allow that discussion of the illicit drugs policy to be part of the collective bargaining agreement talks. It wants to talk about money and nothing else. And so whatever the case, whatever those numbers, and they are very important, it will be very interesting to see how the PA goes, because there are a lot of clubs out there that would like this code to be hardened, even though it was only reviewed and ticked off over the summer.
Yeah, but without, and pardon the pun, wanting to split hairs on it, it is a topic of discussion that needs to be looked at. And I don't think anyone needs to go to war on this, Ralphie. I think what needs to happen is some cold, cool, clinical discussion between the Players Association, the AFL, and work out exactly what it is that everyone wants to get to. No one's at war here because everybody's trying to do the same thing. It's like saying the war on drugs doesn't work. We need to work out what needs to happen, but what we don't want to have is explosive type reporting. And nothing against Mark Robinson. He had a story. He's put it to print tonight, and it'll be in the Herald Sun tomorrow. But tomorrow morning, both Collingwood and the AFL will claim that those figures are inaccurate. But that's not to say that Robbo's story doesn't have the gravitas to be continued upon. So I'm not saying one thing. We're not going to, as I said, try and be pedantic about this, whether he's got it right or wrong by 5 or 4 or 3 or 10 or what doesn't make any difference. There is a big issue here that needs to be addressed, and it's one that we need to look at. All right, Ralphie, we'll come back to you in a few moments' time. Let's go to Alex Rance, who has been one of the stars of the game tonight. Alex, congratulations, mate. The All-Australian form. We saw you limp off at one stage. We were a bit worried, and then you came on and you were magnificent in that last quarter.
I'm not sure about magnificent. Yeah, I just got a little knock in the knee, but yeah, it was a bit of a scrappy one. There's a few unregistered dogs out there, but yeah, one hot day doesn't make a summer. We did all right in the end.
Rancy Dermott here, congratulations, first win of the season. Hard tackling game, not massive numbers in tackling, but it looked like it was a really taxing game physically.
Yeah, just their ability. They've got a few big strong bodies in there just to absorb the tackle and then flick the ball out the back. Really promoted a really competitive atmosphere at the coalface. I thought Lammy was really good in that last quarter about unsettling a few blokes and getting a few contested balls his way.
Alex, you were sensational all night, mate. You really held it together, especially in that first half for Richmond. What was said at three-quarter time, though, between the Richmond guys to really get a lift out of your senior players and also a couple of your lesser lights?
It was just really about winning the ball at the coalface. They were getting a few handballs and overlap plays, so we just really needed to shut that down, and we knew that our offensive and defensive stuff was going to work itself out, but it was really that contested ball stuff that we needed to improve on.
Alex, ball movement's always been a worry for you guys, a bit slow last year. Have you worked on trying to make it quicker?
I wouldn't necessarily say we've worked on making it quicker. It's probably just about identifying when's the time to go fast and when's the time to go slow, and that's about maturing as a group, and the more games we can get into those younger players and the better we can lead as leaders, the better ball movement we're going to show.
When you had the ball deep in defence, Carlton really pressed up on you and denied you targets by foot. Were you instructed to try and run the ball out of defence a little bit more, because they chopped off a few of your kicks?
Yeah, they did. They had a pretty impressive zone going, so we probably could have adapted a little bit better to that in game, and then we probably should have used the overlap handball a little bit better, but it's probably something to review and add for next time.
Alex, how many times have you won a game when you were 11 less inside 50s?
Yeah, it felt like we were about 100 less. I was running around tonguing it a bit in the last quarter, but yeah, not too often. So it was a real credit to our back six and probably the delivery inside, the mids putting the pressure on.
Good on you, Alex. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. All right, let's have a look at...
Thanks, Rancy.
Good on you, Alex. We'll let him go. You can see everyone getting in for the coaches' talk there. Yeah. Let's have a look at Kane Lambert's last quarter. He was absolutely fantastic.
Good second half, Ed, but his last quarter was outstanding. You see him on the ball there right then, but he played predominantly as a half forward who came up to the centre circle and then flowed back with the incoming ball, and I thought he did it really, really well. Nuggety, quite quick over 15, 20 metres, and found plenty of the footy.
Yeah, he did play that role that Shane Edwards plays at times and Brett Delidio, where they start on a half-forward flank and work into the midfield. Obviously, Delidio not there tonight, and Shane Edwards, his numbers were well down for his normal production. So this is great to see. This is really encouraging for Richmond supporters, I believe. They're looking for these, I suppose, second-tier players now to come through and really help the side over the line when they're in trouble.
None of the big names are up the top for Richmond in the win the ball count. It was those guys, Lambert, Miles, and those sort of guys, and that's a great sign.
Well, Miles was very
That's the
good.
improvement.
Just the one thing, I know we're going to go in next door to the boys. The young lad Kerridge had a very good debut with Carlton. Plenty of the footy, but he fatigued as the game went on. Nobody took the ball inside forward 50 more times tonight than Kerridge did. But if he's going to go in 8 times by foot, he'd want to clean his kicking up because he fatigued and turned it over by foot when he went forward.
Yep, that's one thing going in. It's got to hit a target, doesn't it? Let's go to the boys in the lab. They've got the targets lined up tonight. Boys, what have you come up with?
Well, we felt watching the game, and the Kerridge factor that you talk about, he had about 3 or 4 mistakes tonight that all impacted the scoreboard, Jared, and that's why we probably look at the game and say Carlton have structurally done a better job, but Richmond have found a way to win. It's on the back of moments or individual inspirational efforts.
Yeah, Lloyd in particular in that last quarter. Lambert had a brilliant last quarter. Going back to Kerridge, though, his inside work is really going to support Patrick Cripps. His outside work, as Dermot said, needs a little bit of addressing, but here's one of the great goals. Sellers went early with goal of the year, given it's round 1, game 1. That's a pretty fair assessment. It was a fantastic goal. But Lambert showed a hell of a lot of grunt inside. He makes good decisions. He had one poor kick, but geez, he did a hell of a lot of things right.
Well, Lambert had 28 disposals. Now, that is...
It's a great night.
That'll be a PB for him for quite some time. But his last quarter to have 12 touches is fantastic. But this is what they'll probably highlight in the review, his ability to stay in the moment here. And Carlton were coming. 10 points of difference, 6 minutes to go. They were threatening. They looked like scoring almost every time they counter-attacked. And Lambert just found a way to get involved defensively. It was fantastic.
They needed somebody to just give them some stability, particularly after Carlton got off to a great start. And it wasn't coming from their normal leaders. Alex Rance was the one exception. Dusty, I think, found some footy forward of the centre, which certainly helped, but it did come from the second-tier players, and that's what the Tigers are screaming out for.
They've got the most consistent footballer, I think, at centre-half back that the competition has seen for a while, and that's Alex Rance. He makes some mistakes every now and then, and we probably highlight them far too often, but he makes great decisions defensively. Have a look at this. Carlton on the fast break, and they are gone. This is going to be a score. Leaves his man. If it gets to his man, it's the easiest of goals. But these are the sort of decisions that a grade of the game makes, and I think he'll go on to be Richmond's best player if he isn't already in the next 4 or 5 years, and he's the only reason really why they won tonight for me.
Reads the ball magnificently, and his kicking was under enormous questioning early in the piece, but if you look at the recent stats, he is up there in the best 10 or so kicks in the game. 10
intercept possessions tonight for Alex Rance, so too David Asprey. We've got a lot of Carlton methodology to have a look at later on, Ed, so I can't wait to get to that.
Good on you, boys. We'll do that in a few moments' time because we'll take a break and then come back. We'll get some shots out of the Carlton rooms. As we said, always disappointing in the losing rooms, but some young players there showed a fair bit tonight, and the Carlton fans would have liked what they saw in round 1. They would have liked to have seen 10 more points on the board, that's for sure. But in the end, you've got to take what you can from the game, and there were plenty of things to like for Carlton supporters tonight at the MCG. Just didn't quite have the polish, and in the end, the Tigers did what a good team should do in that situation, and that is eke out a win.
You're watching Tigers Blues. This is Thursday Night Footy on Fox.
The big names, we've talked about Pagan and Demetriou, and there's been Maguire and Kennett and Malthouse. Any fallout?
Deservedly so.
Well, that's a subjective assessment, isn't it? I mean, they got angry, so therefore they wouldn't think it was deservedly so.
No, but I think that if we all look back now, the majority of people would say that I'd been fair. I mean, you don't take on people like that without checking your facts and without having a very strong opinion. And there are a couple of things that Mick Malthouse has done over the journey, and Jeff Kennett, and who was the other? Oh, Eddie Maguire. They deserve to be taken to task. I mean, Eddie has been a great president for Collingwood, but there was a period of about a year there, or maybe 2, that I think he lost his way, and I've told him that.
I think she's talking a lot of rubbish, but anyway, that's my point.
Did she tell you?
No, I don't know. She wrote a story about it, but anyway.
What years were they?
I think they were the 2 years before we played in consecutive grand finals and won one. Yeah. But anyway, thanks to Holden. Make sure you watch Caroline Wilson with Mike Sheen, open mic on Tuesday night. And everyone has an opinion in football, and that's why we love it. All right. Thanks to Holden, we're looking back on tonight's big game. Let's go back to the Ultra Tune Lab now. David King and Jared Healy, boys, I'm really interested to see what you thought of the Carlton lineup tonight.
Thought it was amazing. I thought to get this group to learn so much in a short space of time, Jared, it was evident what they've been training for over the last 3 to 4 months, and I think Brendan's done an amazing job. I was talking to somebody in football this week, and they said, be careful you don't overrate system. Well, I'd rebut by just showing him the last 2 hours. Exactly right. We saw it at the Western Bulldogs last year, and maybe we're seeing it at Carlton almost immediately. They've got a star down there. Their first-round selection in last year's draft, 2 years ago's draft, Patrick Cripps.
That's amazing how you do that.
Yes, Jared. I've got a very good touch. He's an average player at the moment only because he's played 24 games. As soon as he gets those games totals up, he's fast-tracking towards the elite. We pointed out what he does well at the start of the night. He's an elite clearance player, an elite contested possession player. There's some other flaws, but his DNA was stamped on this game tonight.
It was absolutely magnificent from the word go. Dominates those contested clearances. I wouldn't be too worried about metres gained. His kicking will get better and he'll get out on his own occasionally. But the ball goes forward when he gets it because he lays it off to others around him. He's getting good support, as we said, with Kerridge. I thought Gibbs was magnificent also in combining with him. And the fact that they've got this little bit of extra depth in there allows the likes of Murphy to get outside as well.
He had 27 disposals tonight and 11 handballs. I want to show you what makes him so special is his ability to stay strong and keep his feet and to take on tacklers, absorb pressure and punishment and get teammates into space. And I think that's the reason why his size we talk about all the time, but that'll be the reason why Carlton fans will just love this guy. They've been fortunate enough to get him off the back of a Chris Judd era, so they won't really go backwards at all in the midfield. And his size can't be underestimated, Jared.
Well, one of the great advantages is he's so tall, he can lift the ball above. So when the hands come from down here to try and impact on where the ball goes, he still can do the deft handball to those on the outside.
He had 10 of Carlton's 31 clearances. Incredible. It was a fantastic night. He didn't have one the last quarter. He'd be kicking himself for that. Let's have a look at their additions this year, the new Carlton players, and there's been pros and cons about all of them. We probably saw all that tonight. You see the warts of the new players, probably more stark than some of the others, but they really did some nice things tonight. You know, Kerridge had his moments. You've got Phillips there who took a fantastic mark.
Good pick-up.
He's a handy pick-up, isn't he? He allows Cruiser to go forward. Only had the 5 touches, but he did some clever things. Look at that block there. Fantastic block from Lamb, just to allow the easiest of marks for Casbolt at the goal face. There's a lot to like about these new players.
Look, it's going to take a couple of drafts, etc., but they've made a significant step forward in their depth, particularly through the middle of the ground, and it's given great support to those that have been stars there for a period of time. Wright was good, excellent 3 goals. Him another good get from the Adelaide Crows.
12 disposals, 7 of those in the forward 50 where it's tough to get them. And this guy, well, he just keeps on bobbing up. But Sam Kerridge has had a funny night, but he'll walk away tonight saying, look, I've had 24 disposals, 10 clearance, 10 contested possessions, and the Carlton players and coaches know they can trust me in the centre bound situations.
Yeah, he had a couple of moments inside forward 50 that he'd like to get back, but bear in mind he's probably run the best part of 15 to 18 Ks before he had those moments. It didn't hit the foot as well as he would have liked, but they would be ticking off that selection.
I think you can have a look at the game in one passage of play. I just want to show exactly what we thought happened tonight. Carlton's inside 50s were pretty poor most of the night. They bombed the ball in, and you can see there was options. When they were able to handball, if Tui's able to get that handball through, there's options everywhere. Yep. In fact, there's a loose man inside their forward 50. As soon as they couldn't hold them up, which they did a fantastic job of all night, picking that ball off as it left the Richmond defensive half. But when they let them through, Richmond can make you pay. If you give them some space, they can make you pay. And this probably highlighted the gap in the two teams at the end.
There was a couple of moments there just when the fatigue really did open up and it got out the back. Tui, incredibly, learned from his mistake quickly. There was another passage of play where he didn't bomb the ball, he got it forward. But this was a good response by the Tigers. They took some advantage of some mistakes.
This is the one you're talking about, where they can do it. They can use their vision. It's the same player. It's Zach Tui just having a bit more composure, handling the heat, to use a Ken Hinkley statement, and they get a good return from it. So I think it's there. It's there. They've just got to find it more consistently and under the heat of battle. There's going to be some lows for Carlton, but if they can produce that sort of competitive effort each and every week, they'll get their wins, they'll get their 4, maybe get their 6, maybe even surprise a few others. But that's a great platform to build from. I know we talk about numbers a lot in football, but to win the ball back 38 times in your forward half, when the average last year was 17 for Carlton, is a great sign for them going forward, and it's a great defensive structure they've got in place.
Yeah, good step up, and as you said, the structure working well for them. Jonathan Brown now has the Fox Footy Player of the Year awards. The votes, Jono?
Yeah, fantastic effort by Mark Murphy tonight. 1 vote for him. He's been out all pre-season. He come off a shoulder operation. 2 votes to Kane Lambert. He was terrific, especially in that second half. Ended up with the highest possession winner for Richmond. And the 3 votes Alex Rance, centre-half back of the century at the moment, the way he's playing, he's been absolutely fantastic. Richmond are always a chance when arguably they've got the best centre-half forward and the best centre-half back in the competition in one side, but Rance, fantastic, when the rest of his Richmond side in the first half were pretty ordinary.
Yeah, when he came off there for a while, they got a bit shaky, didn't they?
Didn't they?
They
Immediately.
They fell right away, and then when he came back on, he just held his line. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Brad Johnson is in the Tiger rooms. He's with Titch Edwards, we believe.
Well, Shane, you've just come out of the meeting with Damien Hardwick. What was his message?
Well, we need to get on our contested ball a bit earlier in that game. We can't leave it to the last quarter to really kickstart our way. So we've got a lot to work on, but hats off to Carlton. They pressured us all game and made us turn the ball over a fair bit.
What about yourself? You had come in with the shoulder. They seem to just knock it around a little bit early on, just trying to put you off your game.
Yeah. Oh, who knows? I probably would have got hit anyway, but a bit of friendly fire. It's all right.
And it took really to that last quarter. Kane Lambert actually in that last quarter really stood up, 10 or so disposals, pumped the ball forward. But then as a collective, you just seemed to grow a little bit more as the game went on and fatigue came in on Carlton.
Yeah, we got the momentum back. They had the momentum for a big patch of the game, so it's a hard thing to do when you're not playing too well throughout the game. So, it's a good sign that we got over the line, but we've got a lot to work on.
You got the big ice pack on the hand, but you got through, mate. 4 points underway. The season's away. Congratulations tonight, and good luck for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Jono.
Good on you, Jono, and well done to Shane Edwards as well, playing well. Under duress, a couple of weeks ago, it looked like he'd broken his collarbone, and back he was there tonight, so still copping a few bumps along the way, and Carlton testing out that shoulder. Well, the Tigers, you can stretch. It's one of those amazing things, isn't it? No matter how sore you are, you seem to be a whole lot better when you get up and win, as the Tigers did by 9 points. When we come back, the report card with David King. Super Saturday matches coming up. Melbourne versus GWS at the MCG. Then it is Gold Coast and Essendon at Metricon. North Melbourne and Adelaide at Etihad. And of course, coming up, it's going to be a beauty to Saturday night with Collingwood and the Swans at the SCG. That one's going to be a beauty. Can't wait for that one. North Melbourne and Adelaide at Etihad. So a Super Saturday of football. 4 great games on MCG, Metricon, SCG and Etihad. All right, boys, back in the lab. Kingy, let's go through the report card. What do you got for us?
I'm sensing a bit of controversy here tonight, David.
But this doesn't sit well with me, Ed, to go through these tonight, but we will. I went with Rance the Reason, and as you just saw with his performance tonight and the rap that we did, Jared, I've given myself a little tick. I thought that was good. You went with Dustified. You wanted Dustin Martin to justify his place and
as an elite player.
As an elite player.
No.
We're not sure about that. There's a grey area here. 24 disposals. He had 7 score involvements. So we've given him a little tick, but you'll probably find you won't be in the votes later on.
Thank you.
Brad Johnson now. Brad got carried away with NAB Challenge form. He got on the back of the #1 pick, attached himself to a superstar, and he said Wiedering would have a record intercept marks for a debutant of 6, and he had 3.
Oh.
So that's a little cross for you, my friend.
Good try, though, John.
Good try. And
keep it up to
straight
form,
home,
guys.
Straight home for you if you can. We go to Dermot Brereton, who went a little bit of Mr T, and if he had have verbaled it a little bit better, he might have got an instant 1 vote. He went, pity the fool, someone's going down.
He went down himself. He came off with the blood rule.
If he had to go on blood rule, it would have been a tick, but unfortunately he didn't get carried off himself or get anyone else carried off. A unique one from Brereton, all the same.
Yeah, I liked it.
Jonathan Brown got involved today. I was really happy with his work. His preparation coming into tonight was fantastic. Hot Koch buns was something I didn't expect from Brownie.
That was excellent work.
It was excellent work. We gave it a tick. I'm not sure it'll get in the votes, but it was very good wordsmithing from you, Brownie. If you get a couple of those in a row, as my old coach would say, he'd just say, you know what? One swallow doesn't make a summer, son. Mark McClure. He went with Murphy to bounce back 25 plus after injury-impacted pre-season. And well done, Mark. Welcome back into form. Little tick for you. 27 disposals.
That's very much. Thank you, Kingy.
Well done. Good work.
I thought I'd get across because, we just sort of don't get on that well.
Yeah, no. and therein lies the reason why.
He was pining for Mick halfway through the
I'll tell you, you know what happened tonight? I'd love to let people in on behind the scenes. The moment Mark cheered Carlton were going to win that game was the moment it's lit.
Right.
Anyway.
Cashball got the ball.
Ed went for Cripps tonight, which was very good by you, Ed. Most effective midfielder on the ground, which he probably was. 27 disposals, 17 contested possessions, 10 clearances.
Thank you.
10 off 31. Now, we've gone to 3-2-1 after much controversy with last year's voting system. A lot easier to do. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because, Ed, originally we had you down for the major votes in the piece, but we'll get to that in a moment. But you've slid down to the one vote. I'll get to the reason why.
Why? Because they pushed him to full forward so he could win the game for them?
No, because you managed to squeeze 15 minutes of conversation about Collingwood and their drugs issues.
You're kidding. Like I wanted to.
Rant's the reason. That pushed me up to 2. And
you self-voting.
That's the self-voting of stage. And we have a leader, Mark McClure, and we will do our best to make sure that's not the case next week.
Hey, Kingy, can we share the who gives the votes out?
Yep.
Can we give it to Eddie next week?
Absolutely.
Do you think you'll get the 3, 2 and 1?
I'll be like one of those dads in the under-11s voting for his son. Good on you, mate. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and wrap up what's been a big night, the opening night of footy in 2016, and the Tigers got home by 9 points against the gallant Carlton side. A magnificent weekend of football for round 1 as the Tigers getting up tonight against Carlton in front of 75,706. And on Easter Monday, it is going to be another classic as these two great clubs, Hawthorn and Geelong, go head-to-head at the MCG. Another bumper crowd. Yes, Cyril will be there, Dermot. He will. So will Puopolo. And plenty of cats, including Dangerfield, in the hoops for the first time in the real stuff. 2:30 on Monday afternoon. Make sure you join me and all the gang as we get stuck into what is going to be a great game of football. Calm down, old boy.
Settle down.
Calm down, all right?
Settle down.
You all right? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
All right.
The young Rioli played well for Richmond tonight too.
Oh, just give it a break, mate. All right. Let's go to Johnny Ralph now. Johnny, let's wrap up the night with some news. What do you got for us?
Well, no more Collingwood drugs scenario, but the AFL's ticket provider, Ticketek, has suffered a third successive meltdown in as many weeks, which saw some fans only getting into the game at the MCG at quarter time. Now, fans had to buy their tickets and then some of them would show them on a Ticketek app. Now, that app melted down. It meant that all those fans who had been able to get those tickets weren't able to show them. They go and get paper tickets again. The AFL would be absolutely furious. People have been queuing for hours online just to get those tickets, and it is proving almost an impossibility for some people. It was a great crowd, 75,706, but as I say, people couldn't get in. It's just not acceptable, and Ticketek will be read the right act by the AFL and the MCC again today.
Yeah, well, they will, and I know that Gil McLaughlin and Stephen Goff at the MCC have been all over him in the last couple of weeks just trying to get this up to scratch. I think half the problem is that Ticketek aren't used to the volume of tickets going through for AFL matches. I mean, we've been getting big crowds for 100 years, I know that, but the technology is just not quite there at the moment, and they have to lift. It's as simple as that. The football public deserve better.
Now, a drama on a much smaller scale. Now, Richmond wanted a brand spanking new pre-match entertainment. It involved Darryl Braithwaite and 4 live horses which were to parade around the MCG. Now, they had a test run yesterday. Now, those horses, they didn't quite stampede, but they just couldn't keep on that synthetic grass, so they did have to abandon that. But Darryl did get to sing before the 7:20 game. But at least forgiveness for Richmond's sins. There won't be any horse manure down there as there were in the Danny Frawley times when they suffered horrible losses. So at least Richmond got across the line.
And some final words on the teams coming in for the weekend's round of matches.
That's right. Well, no Ben Reid for Collingwood for a huge game against Sydney at the SCG. Now, he still hasn't come up from that calf and he's just being eased back in. Jared Witts has been preferred to Brodie Grundy in the ruck, which is something of a surprise. Some notable ins. Gary Ablett has been named. Matthew Pavlich, of course, who has his own injury concerns. Adam Treloar, Redden, Callum Sinclair, notable ins. And the debuts, Clayton Oliver, Josh Shackey, Callum Mills, George Hewitt amongst those. And just finally now, Richmond's injury worries not necessarily abating anytime quickly. Now, Brett Delidio said today on pre-match radio that it was a best-case scenario for him to resume from that quad strain against Collingwood next Friday night, but it sounds like he might miss one final week.
Good on you, mate. And to get the last word, let's go down to the Tiger rooms and hear from the coach of Richmond, Damien Hardwick.
Well, Dimmer, is it more a sense of relief tonight than joy?
Yeah, I think so. I think we got out of jail, really. We're probably lucky that we were good enough at the end to win the game. We played pretty poorly, would be fair to say. Look, all credit to Carlton. They came in with a plan. They did a pretty good job for it. Probably just not quite at the level they could finish us off, really. I've never seen our side give up so many centre-forward turnovers, giving the ball back to the opposition, and it's probably testament to their pressure, which was very good. We're probably lucky we had a couple of standout performances late in the game. Like Kane Lambert's last quarter was outstanding. He nearly single-handedly got us over the line. So, look, it's good to tick off the 4 points. We've certainly got a lot of work to do for going forward.
Did you fear in the third quarter that might have slipped out of control? Basically, Carlton looked like they had a real run on.
Yeah, they did. They sort of got back to that, that freewheeling footy that they do when they used to, a couple of years ago with Rats. It was a similar type of feeling, but just centre clearances became so pivotal in that period of game, and we just sort of couldn't quite get our hands on the ball, get it going our way. It was one of those games, any side that went inside 50, they looked like scoring. Sides defensively set up pretty well behind the ball, and just take your chances when you went inside 50. We were probably fortunate in the end. I think the last quarter clearances was 17-5. I thought Sean Hampson started to dominate, and our midfield started to lift, which they were well beaten, I thought, on the night. Murphy, Gibbs, Cripps probably dominated early, and our guys probably came home a little bit late.
Do you think it speaks to the maturity of the group, Damien, that you can play poorly and still win, whereas maybe 3 years ago it might have slipped out of control?
Oh, it was funny. Like the reality of the situation is we're a year younger than Carlton today, so we're probably the youngest side. But look, it was good for our boys to get experience. We always knew Carlton were going to be an arm wrestle. I think the media people have jumped off them too quickly. They got some really solid players. They played really well against Hawthorn, really well against Sydney. They played really well again tonight. So they're going to win a lot of games going forward.
You've coached against them for a long time now. Can you speak about, just on that issue, how different they are playing the way they did tonight as of, say, 12 months ago?
Yeah, well, it's different. Like the personnel's a little bit different, but the way they play is probably, I'm trying to think how to say, it's probably a style of game we know, if that makes sense, from what we can see. They're very well. Bolts is a really good coach. He'll get them playing some really good footy pretty quickly, I reckon. The system in play is, the zoning behind the ball stuff will take a little bit of getting used to. Once you sort of get a fair look at it, you might get a crack at it again, but they're going to go a long way, I think. They've got some good players.
That pressure they put you under, do you reckon it surprised your players at all?
No, we knew it was going to come. New coach, first game, of course it was going to come. I just didn't think we handled it that well. We blast kicked a lot out of defensive 50, which we don't normally do. We gave the ball back to them. We couldn't, when we did blast kick, get that ball out of bounds. It just kept bouncing back into their hands. So, we probably felt we were defending for a long period of time without attacking. Eventually what happens is what's the saying? I don't even know what the saying is. The gates open, or whatever the hell it is. What is that saying?
Floodgates.
Floodgates. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. The floodgates open.
Was there going to be a floodgate at selection next week? How many come back?
Oh, I'm not too sure at this stage. Look, we're hopeful Grigg will be back. We're hopeful Avam will be back. We're hopeful Deledio will be back. Chaplin played a really good, solid game today. Am I missing any others? I'm not too sure. Conker and Yaz obviously longer term, so they'll be a fair way off. But so there will be, thankfully, a couple of selection headaches. We need to play better than what we did today. All credit to Carlton, though, they're pretty good.
There you go, Damien Hardwick finishing up his press conference there, and we're going to finish up now here on Fox Footy's coverage of Thursday night football. It's been a beauty. Hope you've enjoyed it. Mark McClure, Jonathan Brown, Dermot Brereton, David King, Gerard Healy.
75,000 people. They must have enjoyed the game because it was a terrific game.
It was the way we wanted football to be played. 75,706 is the exact number, and a lot of them have got home from the footy and they want to see the replay, particularly the Tiger fans. Sit back and enjoy, because here it comes. Richmond versus Carlton, round one action on Fox Footy.